Disabled and neurodivergent people historically have been made to jump through endless hoops before they were ever allowed near an employer. So you've got to demonstrate that you can do 100 different things before we'll let you go near a business. Whereas all of the evidence shows that actually, who's ever been ready for a job? I've never been ready for a job in my life. I have a certain amount of strengths, and then they'd go and get a job, and I hope that no one notices for the first 6 months that I don't know what I'm doing. And then I layer up my strengths and my skills as I'm going. So we know that for lots of people, they need support to actually layer up their skills within the workplace. And then the final stage is about in-work support. So it's about layering up those skills, providing support for the individual to learn the job in the job, but also support to the employer to know how do they now navigate this world of ensuring that they are inclusive. And we mustn't high-five each other at that point, because that's getting somebody a job. We then need to be thinking about that career development. So where does that person want to be in 5 years' time, 10 years' time? And is it with that employer, or may it be a kind of a career that spans other employers? And then working with people on an ongoing basis to make sure that they have access to good quality careers.
Is using what's already there in that workplace to support somebody. So it's the natural things. It may be peer support for a colleague, going to a colleague and asking support, someone who's doing a similar role to you. It may be identifying a buddy in the workplace who's got excellent communication skills, who's really approachable, who has got lots of experience in the working role that you've got, and they can provide support and mentoring as well. Or it may be looking at what other natural things are there. So it could be the guides that's available, the training, and looking at what's already in that workplace. So for us, we will observe perhaps a person in the workplace or get feedback from the person about what's already available, and work with the employer as well. The really important thing is to work with the employer and seeing what's already available and identifying what natural supports that person can access. So usually your colleagues and maybe a peer, a mentor, a buddy that person can buddy up with. And we'll work with the employer to identify that as well, and the person in what we call an in-work development plan to support that person in work to sustain that job, but also to look at any career aspirations that they may have in the workplace.
I think other services don't provide that bespoke one-to-one support in the workplace. So I think job coaching is support employment's unique selling point, and it's about talking to the employer about what they need in the first instance and marrying that up with the job seeker support requirements that you would have identified in the vocational profile. I think job coaching needs to be discreet. It has to be individually tailored with the learner's requirements and the employer's requirements at the same time. And we have to inform the employer, and we have to explain that we will fade our support, the gradual reduction of support. So the more competent our job seeker and learner gets, the less support we need in the workplace. And it's about engaging and involving natural supports within that instance. And sometimes it's about giving natural supports advice. And I always found that when I was job coaching, the more I faded support with my learner, the more time I would be spending with natural supports, talking to them about giving them basic tips for support. So it's about basic tips for how to support people, and then tailoring it accordingly. Sometimes with our learners or job seekers, we might carry out a VAC assessment. So a VAC assessment looks at someone's preferred learning style, like visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and tailoring the support there. It's job coaching should be, in the first instance, as I said earlier, not making an assumption that someone can't do something, and not going in with tick lists or aids or adaptations. It's about, and if we do provide any job aids, they should be discreet and not draw attention to our learners. When it comes to the skills gap, the job coach is pivotal to bridging the skills gap, because the employer may not have the necessary understanding in how to tailor their working practices to the individual. In the first instance, anybody going into work and bridging the skills gap, it shouldn't be about the supported employment service going in and providing tick lists or aids and adaptations without the learner first trying that job, because there's an assumption that can be made that that person won't be able to learn the job naturally in the workplace. In supported employment, when it comes to bridging the skills gap, we have to think about the best person to train any of our learners in the supermarket is someone that actually works in the supermarket, because they know the intricacies of the role. But within supported employment, we have to realise that an employer may not have the best knowledge about disability. So that is where the job coach will go in to complement the training given by the employer, and also bridge that skills gap. The role of a job coach is not to replace the line manager or supervisor. The role of a job coach is not to do the job for the learner, because the job coach has to take their support away so that the learner can be seen as equal in the workplace.
Career development is through keeping in contact with the person whilst they're in employment. It's really important to keep that contact throughout their employment, not just to look at career development, but also to make sure that they're happy in their role, they're achieving what they need to achieve, and the employer is getting what they need from the person as well. So we'll do an in-work development plan, and we'll look at initially first how that person can settle in that role, how they can get the best from that role, and then we'll also talk about career development and career aspirations as well. It may be something that they want to do already within this employer, so they may have identified an area of work that they're not currently doing that they'd like to do. So an example might be somebody on the shop floor who's currently packing boxes, but they would like to start using the machinery of a factory or something like that. And then we will put that in our in-work development plans and look at areas of supporting that person to achieve that with the employer. So through training, maybe observing, through shadowing, and then obviously looking at having the opportunity to then apply to that job. And we'll continue to support that person with interview support, with making sure that any gaps of their skills and experiences is closed through the in-work development plan.
I think one important part of career development is, just because we get someone a job, if it doesn't work out, it's not saying they tried work and that's it. You know, they tried a job, it didn't work out for them. I mean, how many of us are in careers that mirror anything we did when we first left school? So the first thing about career development is giving people the opportunity to try jobs until they get the right job. And when someone gets a job, and even if it is the right job, it's thinking about how they can progress within that sector, within that organization. And it's making sure that we keep in touch with people and support them to progress in their careers.